Hello, hello, hello. Hello, lovelies. How are you doing? How things going? I think I've got Flat Cap here, which, hello. Just thought I'd do a little special go live. And because I've just realised that StreamYard have put their prices up to £35 a month instead of 20, I thought I'd better get more use out of this because I've had StreamYard for a long, long time. And we used to kind of go live on the weekends, and it was so much fun. It really was. But for one thing and another, I've not been doing it so much. Well, at all. Well, actually, since September last year. So I think I really should start it again. And at some point, I think I'll start actually putting makeup again on going on camera. But we'll see. That's something to maybe consider later in the future. So tell me how you are. Tell me how things are going. How are you doing? I think we're going to do chapter 19. And if you know, you know. And at least then, because I think we've only got 2 chapters left to go. And I think they're actually quite short. So I thought I could do both of them in one go on here. And yeah, mainly because everything's a bit weird right now out there. Everything's gone a bit strange. And I think we need to just take this week to recuperate, regroup, gather again, and just take a breath and get ourselves back up on our feet again, which is always a good plan, I find, even when you get knocked to the floor, well, to the ground. Right, I'm going to stop waffling now, and I'm going to get on with it. So let's try and remember to press buttons at the same time, because otherwise it's just pointless and useless, isn't it? Okie dokie, my lovely, lovely beans. Hello, petals. How are you doing? How's everything going? I hope you're okay. I hope you're doing fine. I hope you're looking forward to chapter 19 and maybe even chapter 20 today. I would love to be able to give these both to you because it's just one of those weeks. And also, we're cracking on through November, and I've got big plans for December. And I have already started recording Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Woo! And we're going to do Here Comes the Sun as well. And then we're going to look forward to January when we're going to start doing some more Robert Rankin. And of course, more Tom Holt, of course. So my lovely, lovely beans, I hope all the sound is okay because I'm going to do a doubly and do this while I'm going live on YouTube, which is awesome. But at the end of the day, it'll still be there no matter what time you watch it. And I'm always grateful to see you. So, chapter 19 of Paint Your Dragon by our beloved Mr. Tom Holt. Kurt had allowed himself 20 minutes to get from Birmingham to the heart of the Gobi Desert. Thanks to the small flask of concentrated time which Chubby had issued him with, it proved to be ample. An imposing figure was waiting for him around the back of the gents' lavatory. It was wearing a Brooks Brothers suit over its lurid, misshapen body and a pair of dark glasses perched on the bridge. See, doing it live is an absolute nightmare. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my crikey. I'm so sorry. How can I mess up Bridge of its Nose? Honestly. Okie dokie. So we shall delete that one and we shall go back. On the no, we need to go back a bit further because otherwise it'll sound really wrong. Okay, I'm so sorry about this. Technical difficulty. Misshapen body and a pair of dark glasses perched on the bridge of its beak. Hi, Kurt said. Sorry if I kept you waiting. Hang on time, Mr. Lundqvist, replied the captain of Spectral Warriors, handing over a suitcase. Here's the doings. Best of luck. Kurt grinned. Luck, he said, is for losers. You got your boys standing by. In position. You can rely on them to do a good job. Kurt picked up the suitcase. Be seeing you then. He started to walk away, but the captain stopped him. Mr. Lundqvist, he said, I'm curious. Yeah, but don't let it get to you. The shades help a bit. I'm curious, the captain went on, about which of them you're going to take out. Yeah, sure, I got my orders. I don't actually need to know at this stage. I was just wondering. Kurt grinned. A big, wide grin that would make a wolf climb a tree. Watch this space, he said. Then you'll know for sure. George circled, keeping high. Born yesterday. Not him. Came down in the last shower. You must be thinking of somebody else. He hadn't slashed a path through the red-clawed jungle of combat theology to a saintship without knowing when a situation was well and truly hooky. And if you ever set up... God. Right. Oh, that's good. I'm glad. Calming and just blissful is a good thing. Even with my blogs and blargs. Okie dokie. Again. Okay, we got to hooky. Okay. Delete that one. And thank you for indulging me while I'm recording, because it's never that easy. Okay. And breathe. And if ever a setup stank, it was this one. Souls don't just float up out of bodies for no reason. It takes big medicine to work a trick like that. And for it to happen just before a major set-piece battle between good and evil. Some of George's best friends were coincidences. That didn't mean he trusted them as far as he could spit. Well, he said to himself, and what would I do if I were fixing this fight? Easy. I would position a sniper somewhere in the arena. That way, when I come rushing in to scrag my enemy, the sniper blams me just as I'm about to put my wings back and dive. Looks like St. George has killed me. Good triumphs over evil for the second time running. Yeah, well, we'll see about that. He gained a few thousand feet and looked down. Below him, the huge arena looked like a tiny little scab on the knee of the desert. It was packed with people, high rollers and fight aficionados from the length and breadth of time. George chuckled. Now, the way he saw it, spectator sports are, at best, a rather morbid form of voyeurism. So much better if you can participate directly in the action. He started to dive. The joy of it was that the deaths of all the people he was gonna incinerate by way of a diversion would be blamed on the dragon, representing evil and doing a pretty spectacular job, rather than noble, virtuous St. George, representing poor-faced, one-hand tied behind its back good. Given the dragon's track record, nobody would have the slightest problem in believing that it decided to zap a whole stadium full of humans for the sheer hell of it. He took a deep breath. In the white corner, the dragon lifted his helmet, blew dust from the liner, and put it on. It was hot and stuffy and smelt of mothballs, and it wasn't made of asbestos. Bloody silly thing to wear in a dragon fight, he couldn't help thinking. With a sharp pang of anger and loss, he saw a familiar shape, far off in the harsh blue sky. Here he came, the bastard. Okay, he said to the armourer. I'll have the sword now, please. The armourer grinned at him. Get real, buddy, he said. You got to try and kill that thing, and you're planning on using an overgrown paper knife. Man, you're either stupid or crazy. The dragon was about to speak, but decided to look instead. Don't I know you? You may have heard of me, the armourer replied. My name's Kurt Lundquist. The dragon stared at him. But aren't you meant to be down there somewhere with a gun or something? Kurt shook his head. My disguise didn't quite work, did it? No, that, my friend, would be a bad move. I'd hate my last thought before I die to be, God, how could I be so fluffing stupid? I'm going to stay right here where it's safe. Safe? Kurt nodded. Because, he went on, if I've sussed that bastard George. He'll start off by zapping the audience just to make sure there's nobody like me in there waiting to take a shot at him. That sound like the George you used to know? The dragon nodded. I won't ask how you know who I am, he said, but we can't actually let the bloodthirsty lunatic kill 50,000 people. What are we going to? Why not? Why not? The dragon gawped, gobsmacked. For Christ's sake, you idiot, that's people out there. It's your bloody species, and you stand there like a bloody traffic light, like saying, why not? Kurt nodded. Sure, he said. Think about it. Nearly all these guys. I'll try that again. Oh my goodness gracious me. There's nothing worse when you're recording and then you suddenly just catch your breath and it goes gobloik and it all goes a bit wrong. So, okay, so we'll go back there. I'm so sorry that I have to keep going backwards and forwards. Okay, we'll do nearly all these guys. Belit. Okay, we know where we are. Nearly all these guys are playing hooky from their own time, right? And what sort of guys are they? You don't know? I'll tell you. The dragon grabbed his arm. The flying shape was getting closer. Not now, you bastard. Do something. Those guys, Kurt continued, calmly unhooking the dragon's hand from his arm, are your aristocrats, your statesmen, your notable public figures, captains of industry, and generally mega-rich citizens. Now then, think open spaces, town squares, piazzas, pigeons sitting on. Suddenly the dragon relaxed and began to laugh. Statues, he said. Eventually the penny drops. Yeah, man, statues. Kurt shook his head and sighed. Geez, we're superior intelligence. You must be just plain dumb, he said. Haven't you worked it out for yourself yet? You've been cruising around, breathing fire, torching buildings, and all that kind of crap, and nobody's really died. Even those, here Kurt shuddered, recalling his own sufferings. Those ladies, he spat, in that hall in Birmingham didn't actually die. Nobody actually dies because of you, you moron. And you know why? Because you're the good guy. I am. Kurt indulged himself with a theatrical gesture of contemptuous despair. Man, he said witheringly, you are dumb. Look, he went on, when you're the bad guy, I'll try that again because it's when you're the good guy. Oh my God. Okie dokie. Dun, 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 dun. When you're the good guy, do, 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 do. When you're the good guy, however hard you try to do evil, you just can't hack it. Unfair, sure, but that's the way it goes. There's always someone trailing along behind you, in this case me, sorting out the mess and bringing the dead back to life. And it goes with the territory. I see. The dragon lied. Just a second. This thing with the bodies, him getting mine, me getting his. Kurt nodded. I hired a witch doctor to make the switch, he said. Even a dumbbell like you should have been able to work that one out. I mean, how can good triumph over evil if the goddamn dragon kills Saint fucking George? The dragon's reply was drowned out by screams. George was killing the audience. When he'd finished doing that, he hovered for a moment above the centre of the arena, waiting for the smoke to clear so he could see. Time spent on reconnaissance is never wasted. When he was satisfied that everything was okay, nothing on the benches but charred bodies and the like, smoking corpses, horribly twisted and distorted shapes that had once been people, he climbed, circled twice, put his wings back, and came in on the glide, letting his own momentum carry him in. Toby Stevenson, who wasn't quite dead yet, watched him slipping gracefully through the sky, no sound except the whistling of the air, and reflected that he had never seen anything quite so beautiful in his life before. And, he concluded, since it was extremely unlikely that he was going to get a better offer in the few seconds that remained of his life, what better way to go than feasting his eyes on beauty? With luck, it might help take his mind off the agonizing pain. Beside him, where it had fallen, his Kawakachiya Personal Electronics LFZ6686 laptop computer, which had somehow not been melted into a shapeless plastic blob during the firestorm, switched itself on and cleared its screen. Did you remember to get my bet on? What? The effort of speaking racked Chubby's body with pain. Oh, God. Yes. Your bet. No, I forgot. Sorry. What? You idiot. You stupid, careless, good for nothing. You're kidding, Chubby said. I got you 25-1. The slips in the asbestos wallet in my inside pocket. Hey, computer. Well, when I die, who gets my soul? I mean, I think I still own the majority of it, so surely. You did when this conversation started. When you said the word majority, though, you just tipped the scale in my favor. So long, sucker. You bastard, Chubby said, and died. The dragon watched as the shape grew. Seeing himself for the first time through mortal eyes, he realised just how enormous a dragon is. Narrator's note, I suppose it would actually be quite large. I always wondered with like the whole sort of like statues of dragons and stuff, there must be some level of artistic impression. Because, let's face it, they're either the size of a kimono dragon, or they're the size of a double-decker bus. So are they dinosaur turned reptile, or are they kimono dragon monitor lizard exaggerated? The things that go through my mind. And thank you, Flatcamp. I appreciate that. It's all just good fun. It's all just good fun. The dragon watched as the shape grew. Seeing himself for the first time through mortal eyes, he realized just how enormous a dragon is. And that is what makes the difference, he realized. Dragons are so much bigger than people, not to mention faster, stronger, tougher, more intelligent. Only a complete idiot could expect them to live by the same rules. Sure, George, the psychopath, had just killed 50,000 people. So what? Dragons are different from you and me. You have to make allowances. Wake up, cretin! Kurt hissed in his ear. Come on, you've got work to do. Have I? Oh, sorry. Yes. How do I work this thing? I'll try that again. Kurt clicked his tongue. You haven't been listening, have you? Look, all you gotta do is look through the little black tube. When the red dot's on the middle of the dragon's chest, press the button. Thanks. The dragon studied the device in his hands, basically a big grey tube with a smaller black tube perched on top. There was a serial number and the words "Made in Hell" stenciled on the back end. He peered through the scope, lined up the sights, and George exploded. Kurt later explained that he'd missed the heart lung area and hit the stomach instead. Hence no instantaneous kill. Not that it mattered, because the rocket detonated inside the fuel reserves in the beast's intestines. This was why, for perhaps as long as 2 seconds, the poor bugger hung there in the sky, head and tail writhing sickeningly, while the whole centre section became a huge orange fireball. 2 seconds later, the whole lot went up with a heavy thump noise, which made the ground shake and sent charred bits of dead spectator flying around like dead leaves in a sharp gust of wind. An enormous blob of fire hung on in the air for maybe a second and a half longer, and then the whole lot sank slowly, like a burning airship, to the ground. The smell was probably the nastiest thing ever to happen on the surface of the planet.
Gosh,
The dragon said.
I've always wondered what the triumph of good over evil looks like, and now I know.
He hesitated, frowning.
On the whole,
He continued,
I think I can take it or leave it alone. I mean, it's all right for a change, but I wouldn't pay money to watch it.
At his side, Kurt was impatient.
What is it with you goddamn heroes? He demanded tetchily.
Never knew a hero, but he burst out soliloquizing. No, it's not. Try saying that with your mouth full. Yes, a large ruminant animal with hard teeth, a bird combined with a teeth clack, poof, instant fireball, add a witness, a telltale flying monster. Good point. Good point. Right, I've got to try and do this again. Okie dokie. Here we go. At his side, Kurt was impatient.
What is it with you goddamn heroes? He demanded tetchily. Never knew a hero, but he bust out soliloquizing when there's still work to be done. No, so when you have quite finished. Sorry,
the dragon said.
I was miles away. Now what?
Now, said Kurt, we gotta go to Birmingham, which is currently the most important place in the universe. Probably just as well they don't know that. It really play hell with property prices. Usually, he went on, unzipping a pocket of his fiendishly expensive custom combat with a K survival jacket.
The journey takes 9 hours, and that's if you include in-flight refueling. Fortunately,
he held up a small bottle to the light.
Looks like we got a good 9 hours left.
He unscrewed the cap.
Come on, fella, let's move it. My jet's this way. Oh shit, I was forgetting.
The dragon sighed. He wasn't a dragon anymore. All that he'd ever been was now a smoking red glow half a mile away across the corpse. Chalked stadium.
Promise me you won't fly too fast,
he said, scrambling to his feet.
I get airsick.
And here, said the council spokesman, is where we're going to have the statues. Impassive Japanese faces turned and contemplated a big rectangular block of stone slap bang in the middle of Birmingham's world-famous Victoria Square. The spokesman had no way of telling whether they loved it, hated it, or simply couldn't give a flying frisbee. He ploughed onwards, feeling like Father Christmas at a mathematicians' convention. The statues, he bleated, his back to the plinth so he didn't have to look at it. When they're finished, will be the most exciting young talent of the decade, Bianca Wilson, and will depict St. George and the Dragon, that timeless allegory of... The Kawaguchia people weren't listening. They were staring at something behind him. The white-haired one was conferring with his two youngest aides. God, the council official thought. How terribly rude. Good, he continued firmly, versus evil, a theme perennially relevant to us today in this modern age. The original statues were, of course, destroyed in an explosion, but, Jesus, what was it these bastards found so irresistibly interesting? Unable to resist it any longer, the council official turned slowly round and saw... The original statues, he continued seamlessly, have been expertly restored by a team of experts working 24 hours a day and are now once again triumphantly here on display, as you can see. Right, now, if we turn to our left, we can see the award-winning Colmore Tower. Bianca turned the corner out of Eden Place, stopped dead and stared. The dragon was back. Exactly as it had been, where it had been, cold stone, lifeless, empty. The sight of it made her want to throw up. As she walked slowly towards them, an elderly woman in a tweedy coat and a headscarf touched her arm. Yeah, she said, as Blanca? Blanca? I'll try that one again then. Hey, bye it goes. And go back to ear. That's probably the best way to go about it. Do 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 do. Try that one again. Hiya, she said, as Bianca started and turned her head.
You're that Bianca Wilson, aren't you? Huh? Yes, that's me. Saw you on telly. You got blown up. That's right. So I did. Look, if you'll excuse me, the woman did not move. God, Bianca realised. I can't remember if she's one of mine or is she real. Still, short of brushing her hair forward from the back of her neck and looking for chisel marks, Bianca had no way of knowing. You did the carving, the woman said. Guilty, Bianca replied. I mean, yes, that's mine, my statue. Yes? The woman looked at the great stone dragon, then back to Bianca. Not really my cup of tea, this modern stuff, she said. I like things more traditional myself. Well, like that cat watching a bird our Neville got from the garden centre. Of course, he lives over Shenley Fields way. They've got more space for gardens there. Quite. If you'd just excuse me, if I was you, the woman said, I'd do a nice animal, a cat or a dog or something. People like a nice animal. Bianca closed her eyes. Thanks, she said. I'll definitely bear that in mind. The old woman released her arm. Well, she said, I best let you get on. Nice to have met you. Likewise, Bianca said. She watched until the old woman had trotted away towards the library, then walked slowly up to the statue, as if she was stalking a deer. Even as she did so, however, she knew there was no need. This time, there was nobody home. In her statue, meanwhile, the spare statue, number 16, quickened into life, jumped as if someone had stubbed a cigarette out on its nose, and fell over. By the time it hit the floor, it was flesh and blood, not marble. Instead of breaking, therefore, it swore. And it was no longer it. It was she, which was, as far as Chubby Stevenson was concerned, was a rotten trick to play on anybody. She was standing there, motionless as, well, a statue, for example, when an open-topped jeep roared up beside her. She looked around. Get in, Kurt shouted. We've got 90 minutes left. Don't actually need you for this bit, but I thought you might like to see the end. Not really, Bianca said, looking away. If it's all the same to you, Kurt, while you're here, you're the sort of bloke who uses explosives and things. You couldn't spare me a bit, could you? Just enough to blow this lot to tiny pieces, that's all. You fucking dare, snapped the man in the passenger seat. She looked more closely and reacted. If she'd been a cat, she'd have arched her back, extended her claws, and hissed. Cool it, George said. Boy, I'll get me people right one day. Oh my goodness gracious. We'll try this again. We will have to go back to cool it, I believe. Okie dokie. Here we go. Cool it, Kurt said. It's George's body, but Fred inside. You coming or not? We're gonna pick up Mike on the way. Make sure we got the whole team. Bianca shrugged. Might as well, she said. Just so long as nobody asks me to do anything, because right now I simply can't be bothered. Kurt grinned and opened the door. Get in, he said. Well, as soon as they'd gone in through the door that led to the computer room, Kurt had locked it and produced, God only knew where from, a Remington 870 pump-action shotgun. Before his three companions could move, he jacked around into the chamber and pointed it at them. Here they all are, Chief, he said. The dragon, the sculptress lady, and her sidekick. George is dead. Splendid. Stevenson. Dead too. Things are, hotted up towards the end. I have most of his soul. All I have to do is format it and I'll be out of here. It'll be fun. Kurt nodded. I'll say, he said. You collected your winnings yet? Not yet. I have that pleasure to look forward to. Clean up? Very much so. A long time ago, I bet Asmodee, Duke of Hell, a substantial sum of money that St. George would kill the dragon. At the time, he gave me 95-1. When he lost, I offered him double or quits on the rematch. Well, When I get out of this contraption, I shall be comfortably off.
The dragon started forwards, then caught sight of Kurt's gun and stayed where he was.
Nosha, you bastard, he spat. It was you. You fixed the bloody fight. It takes two, Fred. You were happy to take the money, and besides, it's all worked out perfectly. The dragon has killed St. George, which is what should have happened all those years ago. But looked at from another angle, St. George has once again killed the dragon, reaffirming the supremacy of good over evil. You've all got me to thank for that.
Yes, but Bianca started to interrupt and then realized that she had nothing to say. She shut her mouth and sat down on the edge of a desk.
You don't imagine for one moment, do you, that your clowning about playing musical bodies could possibly have succeeded if it hadn't been part of my original plan, which Kurt here has carried out, I may say, like the true professional he is. Thank you, Kurt. You're welcome. Pity about Stevenson, I suppose.
The screen flickered for a moment.
I imagined that idiot Courtright would have whisked him off in his helicopter as soon as the dragon, George, started getting people. My mistake. Anyway, he was expendable. He helped with the plan, his artificial time, the organization he built up. But he was never a part of it. Basically, his heart wasn't in it, his soul was, but only, if you'll pardon the expression, over his dead body. Anyway, all's well that ends well, and as it has, perfectly. In fact, and like you always used to say, Fred, omelets and eggs and omelets. Did I ever tell you I secretly hated you at school, Nosha? I thought you were a vicious little prick back then, and I do now. Just thought I'd share that with you.
The screen dimmed, then flared bright green.
Really? I'm sorry. All right, so perhaps I've made a lot of money along the way, but if it hadn't been for me, evil would have triumphed over good back then, and it'd have done exactly the same now. Which makes me the good guy, surely. Or do any of you have a problem with the logic of that?
There was a long silence, eventually broken by Kurt clearing his throat.
Shall I finish now, boss?
he said, flicking off the safety catch.
Why not? I never could abide self-indulgent gloating. You see, people, this is a fairly happy ending, but not yet happy. As I explained to Kurt not long ago, it's not just a case of evil being vanquished. What really matters in the long run is who does the vanquishing. It's like politics. No earthly use overthrowing evil and corrupt regime X if you immediately replace it with evil and corrupt regime Y. You do see that, don't you?
The dragon tensed the muscles of his legs. He'd have only one chance to spring, and he was prepared to bet that Kurt's reflexes were a match for his, or better. But if he fell across Kurt, knocking him sideways, it might just give Bianca and Mike the chance to throw a chair through the screen. Something like that. The whole thing was probably completely futile, but never mind. He was dead already, and he was going to die again. At this precise moment, his subconscious was working on a brand new religion, the central fundamental doctrine of which was third time lucky.
All right, Kurt. Do what you hired to do. Time for you to become a saint, Kurt. Kill the dragon.
Pardon me?
Don't be silly, Kurt. You're a professional. You do what you are told. Now kill the blasted dragon.
Kurt raised the gun ever so slightly. He was not smiling anymore.
Excuse me, he said.
Well,
sorry to split hairs, Kurt said, but what our agreement actually said was I was hired to kill a dragon, not the Kurt, what on earth are you?
Lundqvist stood up in a single smooth movement. The muzzle of the gun traversed the room, covering Bianca, Mike, and the dragon. Then it was pointing at the screen.
Only one dragon in this room, Nosha, he said. I'll try that again. Oh my goodness gracious me. Lose me voice. Okay, we'll try this again, I think. There we go. Try and get the right accent this time. See, I was jinxed. Only one dragon in this room, Nosha, he said. We got one female human, two male humans, a male saint, and you. Reckon that makes you the last of your species. Cut! The shotgun boomed 8 times, filling the air with broken glasses. All the screens in the room disintegrated into powder. The printer in the corner screamed into action and drilled 12 sides of A4 in 2.5 seconds before a blow from the stock of the Remington silenced it forever. Another species extinct, Kurt grumbled, mopping a slight cut under his left eye. Don't you just hate it when that happens? But the tale isn't over. That was the end of chapter 19. We have chapter 20 to come, which we shall do in just a minute to make sure that we have them both together, to finish off in a glorious fashion. So I shall not say good night. I shall not say keep hydrated and keep warm and keep cool depending on the temperature in your environment. I shall say I will see you shortly. Right, so there will be a short interlude just while I export this audio to make sure that we do not lose it. So I can produce it properly later on. So that will be chapter 19 of Dragon. Make sure we do the metadata so it tidies itself up nicely. Okie dokie. Load the metadata. And that's chapter 19. And then what we can do is we can do chapter 20 if you feel up for it. Yeah, what the heck? What yeckers? Once more into the breach, dear friends. Yes, indeedly do. So, okay, here we go. Let's just export this. Right, so we've got chapter 19 in the bag. Put me headphones on properly so they don't fall off my head. I have a little sup of me cup of tea. Please excuse it if you hear it. I should make slurpy sounds just to show that I'm drinking a really nice cup of tea, but you know. Sorry if you heard me. I was about to say something. I was like, no, you don't want to hear about me drinking my tea. Right then, my lovely, lovely beans. Let's have a look. See, let's just close that one. Can the voice endure? Okie dokie. Are we ready? Here we go. At least you can see it's all genuine as well. So when I go like, hello, petals, you know, I'm like kind of going, hello, my lovelies. Hello again. Right. And deep breath. Here we go. Hello, petals, and welcome back. I'm having a great time tonight. I'm having so much fun. We have Flap Cap here, keeping us company as we record chapter 20. I should have put this on as the finale, shouldn't I? Should have put this on as the last chapter of this book, ready before we go on to Here Comes the Sun, which I'm so excited to read. I can't wait. That's going to be so awesome for December. I can't even. And if I feel up to it, we might even do some grim stories tonight, but we shall see what we shall see. Hello, virus. Right then, so here we go. Chapter 20 of Painted Dragon by the incredible Mr. Thomas Holt. Taxi, Chubby said. Yes, miss. Chubby winced. Not that it wasn't a very nice body. Gorgeous was the word he'd have chosen. It was just that it wasn't, well, him. The tragedy of it was that under normal circumstances, he'd have given anything to be this close to such a sensational-looking lady, but somehow he felt that fancying yourself wasn't a good idea. You'd go blind, you'd read somewhere. The airport, please. Fast as you like. Not much to show for a life's work, he reflected, as he slung the Marks and Spencer's bag, which contained everything useful he'd been able to find in the studio, onto the back seat of the taxi. All he'd been able to find to wear was an old overall of Bianca's. There had been enough money in the meter to cover a taxi fare. Think of some way of getting on and off the plane without a ticket or a passport, of course, but provided he could make it to Zurich, his problems would then be over. He could remember the access code to his safety deposit boxes, and for the first time he was in a position to test the hypothesis that diamonds are indeed a girl's best friend. Personally, he didn't believe it. Where he came from, index-linked government stocks were a girl's best friend, and diamonds were just someone she occasionally had done better.
We'll try this one again. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, please excuse me just for a second. Okay, I'm not one for diamonds, to be honest. I have to go back and do the whole bloody lot of that one. Hey! It's probably better to do it that way. There we go. Okie dokie. Personally, he didn't believe it. Where he came from, index-linked government stocks were a girl's best friend, and diamonds were just someone she occasionally had lunch with. But it would be fun researching the point. There was a jeep following that cab. Coincidence, Chubby assured himself, sliding down the seat. Must be thousands of jeeps in a city this size, and 99.9 of them must be owned by trendy young accountants. The chances of being tailed by, say, for the sake of argument, Kurt Lundqvist must be so tiny as to be impossible to quantify in BS10. Your imagination will be the death of you, Stevenson. In which case, he added, I'll just have to get a wiggle on if it doesn't want to be beaten to it. The jeep had just overtaken the taxi, and there was a Lundqvist in the driver's seat, shaking a fist at him. Or was that meant to be a cheery wave? Get real. Shucks, Chubby told himself. I've been killed once already today. He craned his neck and told the driver to pull in. Gone? The dragon nodded. He didn't want to speculate on where St. George had gone. Damn saint, crying out loud. Are you blind? You're going the wrong way. The captain of the spectral warriors sniggered. A saint, he repeated, just off to a fancy dress bash, were you? I'm undercover, you idiot. Now let me go. The captain ignored him. Next thing he knew, they were at the gate, and there, damn it, were 5 not unfamiliar faces waiting for him. Rodney! He shrieked. Snorkfrod, Prodsnap, tell these hooligans who I am for pity's sake. Chardonnay and Snorkfrod exchanged glances. Never seen this jerk before in my life, they chorused. But something told him that it wasn't going to be nice there. Oh well, it'd be a change for him after all those years in the other tinier place. If he behaved himself for a couple of more years or so, maybe they'd give him a job in the kitchens. The dragon shook himself all over like a dog. Know what? He demanded. What I'd really like is an affidavit from the Holy Ghost saying the rest of my life's my own. I'm not going to count my chickens till they've come home to roost. Bianca shrugged. Kurt will be back soon, she said. He'll probably know. They waited for 2 hours, which was, as it happened, 2 hours wasted. Then Bianca suggested that they take a walk. A what? A walk, out in the open air. Why? Fun, Bianca replied. It's something humans do. You'll have to learn these things if you're going to be a human the rest of your life. The dragon looked at her. Much risk of that, is there? He said. In your opinion, I mean. What's wrong with being human? The dragon winced. Give me a break, he said. Quite apart from the not flying, and not breathing fire, and not gliding effortlessly above the clouds, feeling the sun on your back and the wind in your scales, I think you humans have a really horrible time, and you're welcome to it. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Settle down somewhere? Get a job? I don't know, Bianca replied, as they stepped out onto the street. Maybe there's some sort of agency that resettles you, flies you out to Australia, gives you a new identity, teaches you a useful trade. Get stuffed. I don't want a useful trade. Where's Australia? I think you'd like Australia. It's big and hot. You could be the flying doctor or something. They walked in silence for a while, until the dragon sat down on a bench, complaining that his feet hurt. Now, the dragon said, if I could only get my nice statue back. Oh no, Bianca replied. Not again. But it's all in one piece, the dragon replied, attempting a winning smile. I saw it for myself. Back on this plinth. Oh, go on. Be a sport. Hi, Watcher. Sorry, I'm going to stop for a minute because I've losing my voice there. Hello, Mr. Watcher. How are you doing? How's wifey? Dee-dee-dee-dee. Okie dokie. We've got to do on its plinth. Do-do-do-do-do. Please talk amongst yourselves for a minute. I'm just losing my where I am. Okie dokie. On its plinth. There we go. There we go. Sort myself. Okay. Back on its plinth. Oh, go on. Be a sport. I promise to be careful with it. It's not the statue I'm worried about, Bianca said. Now, if you'd promised to be careful with the planet, yes, I wouldn't believe you. Gosh, look where we are. In front of them, dominating attractive Victoria Square like a Rolls-Royce Corniche in a Tesco's car park, was the statue. For all that it was the work of her own hands and every square inch of it was familiar to her as her own body, Bianca's heart stopped for a moment and her breath lodged in her throat like an undigested chunk of bread roll. It would be so easy to believe it was really alive. Oh, no, you don't, she said, grabbing at Fred and missing. Come back here. Leave it alone. She was, of course, wasting her breath. The dragon had sprinted up to the statue. He was climbing onto it, scrabbling with his fingers, and he was still there. Bianca, he said quietly. It won't let me in. It's locked or something. It's dead. Bianca stood still. I'm sorry, she said. You shouldn't be allowed to have it, but truly, I'm sorry. The dragon looked up and met her eye. Not to worry, he said. You can always make me another one. Over my dead body? If you insist, the dragon replied. A plinth like that one would do me fine. But you're the creative one. You have what you like. I am not, Bianca said, carving you another statue. You've already got a body. There's starving people in the third world who'd be glad of a body like that. Bianca shrugged. I could do you an owl, she said, or maybe a nice seagull. You'd suit a nice seagull. No, I wouldn't, Bianca. I'd pine away, or fly into a telegraph wire, or get my feathers covered in an oil slick. I'm a dragon, Bianca. I need to be what I really am. Sorry, Bianca replied, shaking her head. If it's any consolation, you're not the only one. In point of fact, the number of people who are... Dragon? Oh, for God's... The dragon had clambered right up onto his own head. It was a long way to the ground from there, as the crow flies. Not so far as the human falls, but landing safely is more problematic that way. What the hell do you think you're doing? Bianca demanded. I'm standing on my head. What's it look like I'm doing? Come down, Bianca shouted. It isn't safe. The dragon stood, motionless, gazing. He could see a long way from there, almost as far as he'd been, and almost as far as he had to go. At first, Bianca, and then Bianca and a lot of professional people with loud hailers and certificates to prove they were experts at getting people down from high places tried to persuade him to come down. He didn't seem to hear them. He was miles away. In the middle of all this excitement, a jeep rolled up and parked on the edge of the crowd behind the TV van. They listened to the reporter jib-jabbering happily into his microphone. He's got it all wrong, of course, Mike said. Only to be expected, Kurt replied. Just as well, probably. If they knew exactly who he was, they'd be shooting at him. On the back seat of the jeep, Father Kelly knelt, head bowed, palms together. Kurt rather wished he wouldn't. It'd been ever so slightly flattering at first, when this priest came running over, pointing to something Kurt couldn't see, 3 inches or so above the top of his head, and gibbering about halos and saints. Now, that had been 2 hours ago, and he hadn't let up one bit in all that time. Furthermore, he kept asking Kurt to do things he couldn't do, and wouldn't even if he could. In particular, the requests concerning disarmament and world peace would put Kurt personally out of a job. Kurt had tried asking him nicely to stop, shouting, and even hitting him with the tire iron. The clown didn't seem to notice. Finally, he decided to try ignoring him until he went away. There was a chance it might work in maybe 40 years or so.
Ah, shucks, Kurt sighed. Guess I better deal with this. I think it's the last of the loose ends.
He climbed out of the jeep, shoved something down inside his jacket, glanced in the wing mirror, and smoothed his hair.
Sometimes, he said, I get to thinking maybe it'd be nice if some other guy sorted out the loose ends just once. In my dreams, huh?
In my dreams, Mike replied. I get chased down winding corridors by a 7-foot tall saxophone. Count yourself lucky. Kurt nudged and shoved his way to the front of the cloud. Cloud? Can you imagine that? Shoving and nudging your way to the front of a cloud. Poof. Oh my goodness. We'll try that again. Hey, imagine this. 2 chocolates on 1 sip of tea. Yay! I'm glad wifey's doing well. That's so good to hear. Say hello to her for me. Give her a big hug and say, well done. Proud of you. Oh, it's so good seeing you both here. That's awesome. All 3 of you, in fact. Okay, we'll try this again. Okie dokie. Now I've lost myself. There we are. Kurt nudged and shoved his way to the front of the crowd and waved. The dragon saw him and waved back.
Yo, Fred! Kurt shouted. What are you doing up there, for Christ's sakes? Using my head, the dragon replied. Following my nose, that sort of thing.
Kurt shrugged.
It's up to you, man, he said. If you come down, you can have maybe 50 years of quiet, mundane existence, a splash of fun here and there, from time to time a kick in the nuts from God, and eventually a one-way ride on the celestial meat hook. Kurt, the dragon replied, you missed your calling. You should have been in advertising.
He grinned and stood on one leg while he scratched an itchy ankle.
I think it was Confucius, or one of that lot, who said it's not necessarily better to eat shit than go hungry. Depends,
Kurt replied, taking a bar of chocolate from the top pocket of his jacket and breaking off a chunk.
Raw, yes, agreed. What confuses the issue is books like Shit Cookery Oriental Style and 1001 Feasts of Feces. Boy, you don't know what anything's like until you tried it. Bless you, the dragon replied. You'd be good at this sort of thing if only your heart was in it. But I've seen more sincerity on a game show.
Kurt shrugged. Gadge, he said. He pulled something out from under his jacket and tossed it to the dragon, who caught it one-handed.
What's this?
The dragon asked. Ah, Kurt replied, and walked away. For the record, on the 3rd day, he ascended bodily into heaven, where they gave him a job searching new arrivals in case they tried to take it with them. He was very good at it, and bored stiff. Eventually, he broke into reincarnation laboratories, then ran away and joined a free circus. The dragon opened the package Kurt had thrown him. He studied it for a while, puzzled. Then, just as the TV cameras managed to zoom in and focus on it, he threw it into the air. Then he followed it. Bianca, among others, screamed and looked away as he hit the ground. When she looked up again, she saw that her statue of St. George was back in position, horse rearing, shield held forward, sword raised. Stunningly beautiful. All wrong. Even before the crowd had dispersed, she knew what she had to do. 3 months later, the vice chairman of Kawagachia Integrated Circuits UK formally declared the revamped Victoria Square open. It was raining, flinging it down with the special reserve stock extra wet rain with added real water that you only get in Birmingham. As an extra precaution, some men from the council had attached inch-thick steel hoses to the legs of the statues, but they needn't have bothered. The new Georgian Dragon group wasn't going anywhere, or at least not for some time. Critical opinion was divided as always, ranging from strikingly innovative and original to gratuitously perverse. The latter school did wonders for the statue's popularity, as hundreds of people who thought they knew what perverse meant turned out to have a little nosy.
What they actually saw was a teeny tiny dragon backing away from a huge towering George, advancing on his minuscule opponent with his sword raised above his head. Later critics recognised the piece's true merits. And now it's all in the books, and you can buy a little plastic Saint Dragon and the George key rings in the library gift shop in nearby Chamberlain Square. In any event, it was Bianca's last sculpture. She retired, hung up her chisel, and went into partnership with Mike, running the biggest chipping and gravel merchants firm in the West Midlands. Ex-friends still ask pointedly why someone who devoted so much of her life to making statues should now devote an equal amount of energy to buying them up in bulk and turning them into limestone fertilizer. When asked, Bianca will generally smile and make some oblique remark about slum clearance and doing her bit to put the finality back into death, until Mike interrupts her and explains actually there's more money in it, which incidentally is perfectly true. The dragon roars. This high above the clouds, with no ground visible and nothing else to be seen in any direction except straggling white fluff, perspective goes by the board. What looks like a small dragon up close, be a large dragon far away, or vice versa. Not, of course, that it actually matters. True. Kurt's gift-wrapped parcel had turned out to contain 6-inch long plastic toy dragon, bought from the Early Learning Centre in the Palisades off New Street. But, as Kurt himself deposed in evidence in front of the Celestial Board of Inquiry, it stood to reason that if it was in a kid's shop, it was probably a kid toy dragon, and maybe it just grew up. Or maybe it didn't want to grow up. Maybe it just thought a happy thought and flew the hell out. There's an urban folk myth that says that every time a child says he doesn't believe in dragons, somewhere a dragon dies. This is unlikely, because if it was true, we'd spend half our lives shoveling 30-foot corpses out of the highways with dumper trucks, and the smell would be intolerable. Slightly more credible is the quaint folk theorem that says that the higher up and away you go, the less rigid and hidebound the rules become. Oh my goodness. Yes, gentle hug, that's a good thing. Oh my goodness, I was doing so well and then I choked. Oh my goodness. We will have to try this again. We will reverse. I'm so sorry, my lovelies, for disrupting the floor. So it says up the higher weapon, away you go. We'll delete that bit. Oh my goodness. Well, this isn't good, is it? We're going to do the folk theorem. And we'll try this again. Okay. Delete. Slightly more credible. There we go. We found where we are. We can start over. Slightly more credible is the quaint folk theorem that says the higher up and away you go, the less rigid and hidebound the rules become. It's something to do with relativity, and it limps by for the simple reason that it's far more trouble than it's worth to disprove it. In any event, the dragon roars, with nobody to see and nobody to care. It was as big as it wanted to be, and it was huge. It's high up. Small is large, and large is small. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. And this is fine, because problems only arise when people on the ground point and say, this is small, this is big, this is good, this is bad. Which points out the moral of the story. Stay high, stay aloof, and there'll be nobody to fuck you around. It works flawlessly if you are a dragon, which very few of us are. Unfortunately, there's no equivalent pearl of wisdom for human beings, who therefore have to make out the best that they can. The boy who stuck feathers to his arms with wax and learned to fly eventually went so high the sun melted the wax and he fell. But that was all right too, because it served as an awful warning, and besides, he was heavily insured. In any event, the dragon roars. The dangerous heat of the sun warmed his plastic wings, but didn't melt them. An airliner carrying the Kawaguchia integrated circuit team back to Tokyo flew past directly below, looking as small as a child's toy in comparison. A little higher up, a
communications satellite bounded back the amazing news that earlier that day in Mongolia, the mythical St. George had killed what could only be described as a dragon, along with 50,000 innocent bystanders who on further inquiry turned out to not have existed. And so that was all right. The item was sandwiched between the latest in the South Enders starring love romp with plumber story and an entirely accurate weather forecast. Guys in the trade call context. There's an old saying as well among dragons that every time a human says he doesn't believe in dragons, a human dies. And serve the cheeky bugger right. However, since there is now only one dragon who firmly refuses to believe in the existence of human beings, there is no immediate cause for alarm. The dragon spread his wings, turned into the wind, and hovered, motionless as any statue. Ta-da! Oh, I love that book so very, very much, and I hope you enjoyed it too. And thank you very much to Flat Cat Gaming and The Watcher for coming in to watch and to see the recording of this, which is absolutely awesome. I'm so glad that we've been able to get through another one. And as I said, the next one will be Here Comes the Sun. And, special thank you to all of you for listening and hearing and being here. So hydrate, keep warm, keep cool, get lots of good sleep. See you later, pedal. Thank you for waiting with me with that recording. I do really appreciate it. As I said, I've started to record Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, which is going to be great fun. You're most welcome. And then the next one will be Here Comes the Sun, as we said. And then January should be some sort of I don't know whether to do, well, we're going to do Robert Rankin definitely, but I think we'll need to start asking you guys about what next Tom Holt book we're going to do. But either way, I appreciate you very, very much. Thank you for being here. And if I can come on again over the next week or so, I'll do my very best to do so. But yes, I appreciate you. Take care.